and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to this edition of Political Smackdown. I'm Betsy Wells, your host this week. We have our regular crew. To my right is Mike Deadman.
I don't think so. We're a little bit more
Mike
discriminating
Philbeck,
in
the
our
former
family.
Mayor of Shelby. To my left is Wes Westmoreland.
That is about as bad as calling me Wes Deadman.
I know, that's true.
You
Sorry
should be
to
so
y'all.
lucky.
All right, Wes Westmoreland, former state senator, and over to my extreme left, Sandy Deadman, former majority whip in the North Carolina House. So guys, I hope y'all had a wonderful vacation, and it's back to Political Smackdown. Before we start today, we want to extend sympathy to the Kevin and Sherry Gordon family in the death of their 2-year-old grandson, White, over the July 4th weekend. Our whole Political Smackdown family extends condolences to the parents, Zachary and Anne Marie, and Sister Magnolia. Our prayers are with you during this very hard time. And before we get into our political discussion, I want to give a shout out to North Elementary School in Kings Mountain for raising $10,827 for the Relay for Life for cancer research. Anna Grace Hughes and Roxanne Botham led this campaign, which began in September and continued throughout the school year. They had 2 spirit nights at Love's Fish Box throughout the year, and thanks to the Love's family for allowing donations to happen. But the biggest event was during Relay Spirit Week was the contest between the classes, which was a coin drive. Reminds me of collecting dimes to bring the USS North Carolina to Wilmington. The top classes won an ice cream party, and you see some of the pictures of they had a hat day, and they had other things for the children to participate in. Now, North has an enrollment of 285 students, but this is an awesome way to encourage the giving to others. Comments from you gentlemen? Wes?
Well, Betsy, I think it's a great opportunity for children to learn to give, as you said. So often we hear of people giving back, which I don't believe in. That presupposes you have to take something from someone first. But very proud of these young people. I think a number of schools were involved. I know Pinnacle was, but North really put on a show, $10,000. So congratulations to each of these young people, their parents, the teachers, Love's Fish Box. What a great showing and great learning opportunity for these children to contribute to society.
And the Kings Mountain Herald, as you saw from the pictures, did a really nice article on it last week. Andy?
Well, Anna Grace has always been our #1 fan on this
true.
show.
That's
Without a doubt.
true.
There's
She and her dad.
and love Dean with a passion. I still remember being at the mall when we were doing one. She had Dean for president sign up.
And there's Anna Grace.
But it's just such a great thing that this group did. I mean, and let's face it, that small of a student population and able to raise that kind of money, that shows the commitment that was made by all of the staff, all the parents. I mean, it just faces it. It was something that shows that if you put your mind to it and everybody digs in and works, you can do it. And I just think it's phenomenal.
Wonderful. All right, Mike?
Well, I'd just say kudos to Anna Grace and Roxanne for leading these kids to do this, and as y'all have noted, teaching kids to give back to the community at a young age, and
Don't
certainly
say give back.
what
Give to.
give to the community. Well, that's true. I guess they've just been receivers as kids at that point. I guess that's just a saying we use a lot, and I
That's
just let
just
it
a
slip out.
libertarian coming out
That
in him. He
is
can't
a
help it.
libertarian.
Well, at any rate, it's a great thing, Relay for Life, and what it does for cancer research, and thanks to these folks for helping these kids to make that happen.
Well, good, and we'll look forward to seeing what they do next year. Well, moving now to politics. What a busy end of term the Supreme Court has had. For months, we have eagerly awaited their decision concerning whether or not past President Trump has immunity from prosecution for crimes committed while in the White House. Finally, they revealed their decision. What was the decision? What does it mean? How will this affect the judiciary branch of government? Were you surprised? All right, Mike, get us started.
Well, by a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court ruled that in the president's official acts of duty, they are protected from criminal prosecution and cannot be charged for doing their job as outlined in the Constitution, and that they have the presumption of immunity for other actions taken while in office. The court also said that a president can be prosecuted for unofficial acts, and in Trump's case related to the 2020 election, it'll be up to the trial judge to figure out what was a real act of his official duty on January 6th, for example, and what wasn't. But that trial is in real trouble, according to most of what you read, because of this decision. So I guess the real thing is, what's the difference between official and unofficial acts? That's the real question, according to the Wall Street Journal's article that I'm looking at here. And the Wall Street Journal editorial says it's a little murky. Distinguishing the president's official actions from his unofficial ones can be difficult, Chief Justice Roberts wrote. The court said the president is absolutely immune from actions in his core constitutional authority. Everything else is privileged if it can be characterized as falling within the outer perimeter of his responsibility as president, but a court could determine that some conduct, such as campaign speech or fundraising, constitutes unofficial acts for which there is no immunity. And the Journal says the January 6th case is in extreme jeopardy. Other cases are in some jeopardy, and in fact, the case already decided in New York moved 2 months out to study this case because some of it had things that he said to others while in the White House that was allowed as evidence. So some of that is murky. So it's an interesting decision. It doesn't make a president above the law as a citizen, but it gives protection to his core constitutional duties that had never been decided before. Of course, the left is screaming. One of the Justice Sotomayor said that was in dissent that we now have a king, which is certainly not the case. But, you know, there are certain things presidents do that they could be charged for, theoretically at least, that now they can't. And I think about things like ordering Obama bin Laden to be executed and things like that, and actions that George W. Bush maybe took after 9/11, which were often questioned as legal. You know, the first president to benefit from this ruling, Betsy, is Trump. If Trump wins in November, the second president, if he lives, to benefit may be Biden.
All right, Wes,
That was my first
that was
line.
your lead in, huh?
The best decision is for Biden as he consistently violates U.S. laws through executive action over immigration, the border, student loans, the list goes on and on. At the end of the day, Betsy, this ruling keeps the status quo, barring an action that is willful, wanton, or criminal. Mike, you had immunity as mayor for official actions. Andy, you and I
But
had...
not from being cussed.
No, nobody's immune from that.
You deserved a few of them. I can tell you that
In person
from
or on the
experience.
phone.
But Andy, you and I had immunity from official acts. First responders have immunity, similar immunity. This doesn't mean, as Betsy, many progressives have alleged, that the president can go out and kill somebody. They can't. They can't get out of a speeding ticket. No one is above the law. It simply reaffirms that in an official capacity, acting on the best known evidence, the president, like other officers of the state, should not face charges after the fact for a different outcome than anticipated under this ruling, Trump, if he violated the law on January 6th, will be prosecuted and convicted. This was a good ruling, it was sound, and it keeps the status quo for all elected officials, as it should.
Andy, I just wondered how they'd spin it. Didn't you today?
Well,
All right, just go right ahead, Andy.
Well, here's the thing, Betsy. It has always been, if you were an elected person, if somebody got mad at Mike, let's say, when he was annexing half the county.
Oh, a lot of us did.
And, I mean, but that was within his powers as mayor to try to move that forward on council. Is that an illegal act? No, it's not. Is it an illegal act well, example you had about Obama when he okayed the Navy SEALs to go in to kill Osama bin Laden. There's probably some people who thought that might have been. But, I mean, and I think when you look at any president, there are things that need to be protected. And I disagree with you, though, Wes. I think that the Supreme Court has made this murky as much as anything else, because now it's sort of like pornography. Well, that wasn't, they said, I know it when I see it. Well, and that's what I'm afraid with this. They could have given us a clear definition of it than what we have here.
We've got constitutional authority.
Well, and
that's the definition.
But the thing, but you still have, if somebody feels like they have gone over the line, I mean, that's the thing. This becomes about
like
perspective.
allowing people to come across the border in violation of the law?
Well, I mean,
is that one example
well,
you're
no,
talking
that's
about?
not. But it could be. But
What about student loans after the Supreme Court's ruled you can't do it and you do it anyway?
Well, but then you got Trump said he could go shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and nobody'd ever do anything about it. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you got, that Trump has made things that we never thought about before.
On some of these things, the bottom line is, it's like all other decisions made by courts that are made of lawyers, other lawyers in the private sector are going to get rich off of some of these
there's
cases.
no doubt about it. But my point still is, with Trump, we have got a person who wants to be president again that is doing things so far out of whack with everybody else that's ever served. I mean, there's no telling what he could do. And he's talking about getting even, and he's going to settle scores. I mean, all this stuff. I mean, yeah, there's some in politics, there's some of that it does go on. Everybody does it, whether they want to admit it or not. I just feel like the Supreme Court, as far as they went, was fine, but they should have clarified it a little bit more. This is just going to get kicked back down to the lower courts, and then they're going to come back and maybe put a finer point on it. But in the meantime, here we are.
The impartial Supreme Court waited so long to make this decision so you can be that the American people will not hear any cases against Trump other than the one that's already been had. And then what did they do? They sent it back down to the lower court to define official. Now, if President Biden, in his official capacity as president, looks at past President Trump and he calls up the Navy SEALs to assassinate him because he did break.
Oh, Betsy.
Oh, listen. Well, now think about it. And then he did,
Betsy,
committed
that is
treason.
Illegal under any circumstances. There's no basis for that assumption.
That's not what was said though when they discussed
That's not what's said on CNN.
No, it's not. Now,
I just think there's a lot of
yes, it's murky.
There's a lot of clarity we still need.
And the impartiality of the Supreme Court is gone. They've got a 36% approval rating because they are partisan.
Like
well, we'll talk about that
There's
in a
a
minute.
big difference between executive action that allows people to come here against the law.
Oh, and we've got to talk about immigration.
There's a big difference in student loans when multiple courts have ruled it's illegal.
Tell that to the
Well,
students
that's why
that
we
got
have
relief.
elections, Wes.
I will.
I mean,
And
that's
it
why
is
we have
elections.
elections, and that will be decided on a political
No, that's
basis.
why we have laws. You have to follow the law.
Well,
That's the bottom
I
line.
think
You have to follow the law.
we'll
And
be
if you follow
talking
the
about
law,
this more as we go along. We obviously disagree on exactly what happened.
I'm just
but
glad you
let's-
didn't slap my hand with a ruler.
Well, or I could have. I
Teacher.
said Wes. All right, please stay with us. We've got to go to break now. Come back for the next edition of Political Smackdown.
Chef Paul Prudhomme once said, "You don't need a silver fork to eat good food." Well, on Cleveland County Kitchen, we don't have a silver fork, but we sure do serve up lots of good food. Hi, I'm Deborah Blanton. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen. Each month, we offer a complete farm-to-table experience. We visit local growers, we learn about nutrition, and wrap things up with wonderful meals prepared by our guest chefs. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen.
And welcome back to this edition of Political Smackdown. And we had some interesting conversation during the break, but we're going to move on to the next question. Now to politics. I wish I wish I had Cormac the Magnificent's turban that Johnny Carson used on his show to predict things in the envelope. What a busy, and we certainly have had a debate, and Andy, our president, didn't do very well. The discussion now is whether President Biden stays in the race. If he were to drop out, who would replace him? I am a delegate to the National Convention next month. Will it be an open convention?
Oh, my goodness.
Where we will actually select the presidential nominee? All right, Andy, what are your thoughts?
I'm getting a headache again. Well, I mean, this is the thing of it, Betsy. It's obvious that President Biden, who I've always had a weak spot for, and I've liked him. I mean, he has always been his whole life a gaffe machine. Mm-hmm. I mean, but you can't help but think his heart was always in the right place. He has now, in my uneducated opinion, it's time for him to take a victory lap and let somebody else be our nominee. I just think and I hate it for him. I hate to see him. I feel for him. I really do, because this could be any of us at any time.
It will be.
Well, I hope I'm not that bad, but
You're close to it now.
West.
Wes,
Well, anyway,
You are going to have
you ate your Wheaties this morning.
Betsy, you are going to have to bring your paddle.
yeah. Well, but what you get down to is where you go. I mean, you know, Vice President Harris would be the logical one, but she's not beloved in the Democrat Party. Look how quick she got kicked out of the primary. I mean, quick. And
But that's a while back.
yeah, it is, but still, I think there's a lot of people feel, but if they step over, there's going to be, you talk about an insurrection.
Yes.
I mean, I would feel for your safety in a Democratic convention, I'll be honest. I mean, especially going to Chicago.
My family's been calling me from the mountains. Are you really going? I
But,
said yes.
Yeah, but, you know, and I don't know where you go from there. If you end up with an open convention, I mean, I don't even know where to even begin. And I've not really looked at the mechanics, because I'll be honest, I don't know what the rules actually say. And I mean, we're going to have adoption rules probably before too much longer. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, is it going to permit, which it should, if you take nominations to the floor, if he steps aside? I mean, but Vice President Harris is the only one that can actually take that money he's raised.
That's right.
I mean, that's it.
Directly.
And so there you've got a mess that somebody could have if the worst comes to worst, and y'all pick somebody out of the blue at the convention. How are they going to fund it against Trump? I mean, this becomes. I mean, there are so many moving parts of this thing. It's scary what it could do. But I'll be frank. I'm not. Sometimes our form of government and the Republicans can get messy. But you know, it cannot always be just cut and dried. Sometimes we need to let people know there are human beings that are involved in this. It's not done, well, I was going to say a smoke-filled room, but since nobody much smokes anymore, except maybe ones that like a little pot, I guess, but that
Well,
might...
there's still a holdout for cigars, but
Yeah, but I mean, but still, the thing of it is, it could be as bad as when Truman was trying to get his nomination, again, how many ballots did they go through before they finally had a nominee? It was, it worries me, but sometimes maybe this sort of thing could be cathartic, and maybe we might be able to get ourselves back on track again.
All right, Mike?
Well, of course, we're talking about the debate that happened the night we taped 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and then we skipped last week and had a special program put in we taped for last week. But at the debate, Joe Biden wasn't really a gaffe machine because he just couldn't get his mind to work. Let's just be honest about it. It was just as bad as it could have gotten, and it's created a stir for the whole 2 weeks. So at a human level, it's just sad, whether it's Joe Biden or my mother or anybody, to see the mind begin to deteriorate. And as you noted, it can and may well happen to all of us. The ideal is for your mind and your physical body to die on the same day, but it doesn't happen often in our culture. And Andy's gone through a lot of what's there about if he drops out or doesn't drop out. But you do have a relatively recent history in modern times. In 1968, after having won a landslide victory in '64, got into the Vietnam War, and Lyndon Johnson's rating dropped way down in the 30s, and he chose in April not to run and anointed Hubert Humphrey. They had just lost 2 years before something different. They had lost 47 House seats, and they had lost 4 Senate seats. But bowing to the reality that he didn't think he could win in the climate, he turned it over to his vice president, and of course the result was that Nixon beat him electorally 301 to 191 in '68. So Andy changing in the middle of the stream didn't seem to work too well, although Johnson, while he would have been in any of the primaries that had been held up to April, I'm sure he would have been the only one getting votes, but he took himself out early. Then 4 years later, it compounded itself because when Upry gone, McGovern got beat and only won 1 state in the District of Columbia. So you're just in never land. You don't know what's the best thing to do. Now, you weren't running against a Trump. Nixon was no Trump, even though he did the Watergate thing after that
True.
term.
He was no Trump.
He wasn't
Nobody
nearly as
liked Trump.
controversial
But
as Trump.
he was considered to be a serious candidate,
Right.
too.
Yes.
I mean, he'd
Yeah.
been governor of California, had been in the Senate, and
So I don't know,
And
but I will have
vice
to tell
president.
y'all that I have had so much fun these last 2 weeks watching CNN and MSNBC and the Washington Post and the New York Times have people on them that have now decided that all of a sudden Biden has mental acuity issues. And watching the turmoil within the party reminds me of this quote. Can we get the meme? Will Rogers, famous Democrat from the 30s and 40s, y'all have all seen this. I'm not a member of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat.
I've used it
We've
many
used
times.
it, yes, many times.
That's what we've seen these 2 weeks. So as we sit here, Biden says he's still in. Whether
And-
that changes before we're here again next week, I don't know. But it is a very interesting, and for the party and for the country, it's a serious situation.
All right, Wes?
Well, the cadaver in chief has certainly had a bad
Wes,
10 days.
Wes,
Now,
Wes,
And-
Wes.
and
It's
the-
4 Wes's this
oh.
And
time.
see, the Democrat Party seems like Mayberry when Andy's out of town and Barney's in charge.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
It's interesting that all the conversation about this from Biden and all the other Democrats is about beating Trump, not about
Yes.
leading the nation for the next 4 years. I think that shows the priorities, and that may be the key. So the bigger question is, if Biden isn't qualified to run or even stand trial, is he qualified to run the country? If not Biden, who should be president for the next 6 months? I think this is a part of the internal debate that Democrats may be having. It's difficult to force him out of the nomination, but not necessarily out of the White House. But this is the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party.
Oh,
I really think whoever can give a positive vision for the next 4 years, whether you replace Biden, whether it's Trump, whoever, if you give a positive vision for the nation for the next 4 years, a plan, I think you win the election. Betsy, Andy, y'all are squandering a great opportunity for a mulligan to get a good candidate to run for president. You're squandering it.
But there's no mechanism to force him out, any way,
No.
shape, or form.
Well, there is. You're going to vote on the rules the first day of
No.
convention. You can change the rules and release the delegates.
How are you going to do that when he has control of the whole mechanics of it with his
And
people?
14 million people voted for
Well,
him
if he
in the
gets out,
primaries.
it's likely going to be, if he's not the nominee, it's likely going to be because he takes himself out.
does.
That's the only
But I would
That is
argue
it.
the 25th Amendment is in
That
play.
is what I know Mike Johnson
He
is
appears to
advocating.
be incapable of running
that
the
is not
government for the
true.
next 6 months.
He is right now in Washington with the 75th anniversary of NATO, with all of those presidents from across
And
the
as-
world, and doing a very
But-
good job.
and as we
He
take
was-
today-
he was also
Does he know he's
in-
there?
Listen, you didn't see him address the AFL-CIO yesterday off script.
With teleprompters, as we
No,
take
he
today,
did
he's
not
going to have a
have
press conference this
teleprompters.
evening, and we'll know
Well,
more.
we will, obviously, there are two alternative realms that we're dealing with, and of course, you cannot force a president out. President Biden has not done anything like Trump, and you talk about, well, you got to look for a vision of the country. No, we got to defeat Trump and what that historic.
That's all it's about, is beating Trump.
Yes, it is, because of what he poses
I'm
as.
afraid that won't be substituted.
Well,
I'll do it.
but it's something that the Democrats are keyed on. We cannot have another presidency of President Trump, or we won't have another president.
I'll go
Yes.
back
I
to
mean, he will
Mayberry. It's
change
time
it.
for a citizen's
Heritage
arrest.
Foundation and the group have it outlined how they're going to change the government.
I think it's time for the lightning round.
I think it is too, y'all. Let's go to lightning round. We'll talk more later. All right, Andy, what you got?
Well, as we tape this on Thursday, CNBC released this morning the best states to do business in. And I'm afraid we lost our number one position. Virginia is number one, North Carolina is number two, Texas is number three, Georgia is number four, Florida is number five. You know who the worst state for business is? Hawaii.
What?
And Mississippi is right above it. It seems like Mississippi is at the bottom of
Poor
everything these days.
All right, Mike?
Well, the North Carolina State Board of Election is playing politics. This week, they approved the Constitution Party to be on the North Carolina ballot because it'll take away votes from Republicans. There's 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. All 5 voted to let them. The 2 Republicans would have voted to let Cornel West and RFK Jr.'s parties get on the ballot, and they have many more signatures than the Constitution Party. But so far, to protect Joe Biden or the Democratic nominee, the Democrats are proving that Berger may be right. We need 4 people from each party
All
on the
right,
board.
Wes?
Well, I'll shorten mine, but
Yes, we've got a few seconds.
with a nod to the First Lady. Mike, you did a great job today. You answered all the questions and had all your facts right. And today is the 278th day of captivity for Americans held hostage by Hamas.
And that's our show for this week. We thank you for letting us into your homes, and we hope you'll join us next week for the next edition of Political Smackdown.